I'm so glad you're here. Bethenny,
Thank
thank you for coming
you.
on.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about this book, which is coming out very, very soon. Before we do, I feel like just in case people don't know sort of the inflection points of your journey and how you went from being like a cute kid who then wound up becoming a mogul, building an empire, personality. Like, I don't know sometimes that people know how it happens. They just see that it happened. And so before we get into the book, which I think you have such a handle on what it means to build an empire, I think it might be cool to take them behind the scenes of you before we knew you, and like, what were some of those turning points that got you to where you are?
I would say it's like running a marathon. It's mile by mile, building, layering. I would say it's just one step at a time. Um, Certainly going on reality television. I suppose the first time it was fool's gold. It didn't lead to anything when I was on The Apprentice. It really didn't. But I guess it led to me feeling that I had an entry point into the entertainment industry and something to sort of build upon. But it wasn't. In retrospect, that doesn't feel like a critical moment. Um, Doing the Housewives, but not just doing the Housewives, being very honest about being flawed and my journey, even at that point, and being uncertain was something that people connected to. So that was surprising to me. And
Yep.
certainly creating a cocktail, not as much as the credibility of being the first person, certainly on reality television and really most entertainment. Uh, yeah, I'm thinking about most entertainment to take to monetize a product that you've integrated into television. I was pretty much the first person to do that. So to turn that and to be in the Hollywood Reporter and on the cover of Forbes magazine, and for me to run into literally Charlie Sheen's manager and Justin Timberlake's people and major people and have their representatives say, everyone's saying to me, we want a Bethenny Frankel deal. We want a SkinnyGirl deal. So that was credibility. But that was the plan too. It gave me street cred. And I had turned a brand in a very short period of time as a person who is unexpected to do that. So I think that was definitely disruptive.
Yeah, well, 100% it was disruptive. And I think what's also unique about you is just how lovable and likable you are, because there are people who are just boss women, right? But with you, I think people just adore you and really appreciate how smart you are. But there's like a lovability about you. I think because you are so real, there's a vulnerability to that, which is very powerful. And so that's huge. And that's been a huge imprint you've made in the world. I think one of my questions for you, because so many millions of women now ask me sort of like, well, how do I go from here to there? And when I'm dealing with them and asking them what's in their way, there's so much resistance, right? And I've read a little bit about your childhood, and it wasn't like the worst childhood I've ever read about, but it also wasn't the easiest thing I've ever read about. And so I'm just curious, like, for people who are listening right now, they're driving to work or they're on the treadmill or whatever, and they feel like what they desire is a million miles away. What do you think allowed you to become a vibrational match for what it is that you created?
Because I have always been the same way as I am now. I'm always pushing through while, like, it's sort of like when you see people at the gym, there's that big puffy mat that trainer's holding, and those
Yeah.
people are just pushing against them. And I'm always like looking at that person, just being like, get the fuck out of my way. And so I think that I've always been like that. And I just think that women can, and people can be stuck and talk. And, I don't like small talk. I just don't like the pleasantries. I don't go to cocktail parties. I don't want to like do bullshit.
Right.
I don't care about the weather. I just want to talk, like I want to do it or I don't want to do it. And so, I go through this with people I work with, and we can and we're not going to, and we don't, and I'm just like, let's get that part out of the way. Let's just go. Because if something doesn't happen, like, okay, then it's not gonna, we'll find that out when we get there. For something's gonna get spilled in the car, we're gonna hit something, like it's gonna happen. Like, let's just get in the fucking car. So I'm just that person that has always been like, all right, I'm going to go get that. And then if I don't get it, like, I'm gonna be on the Apprentice. I'm gonna be on the Apprentice, and I'm there sequestered in a hotel, and it's lonely, and I'm broke, and I want it, and it's a week, and I become the runner up in that experience, and then I don't get it. Well, I pushed it all the way. I was super bummed for a couple of days. Then I picked myself up and started
Right.
reaching out to them again, and then they put me on the Martha Stewart Apprentice, and I went through that same grueling experience. And it's just sort of like you just going through. And I want to tell you something. Nobody does that. And it's not what Kim Kardashian said about get up off your ass and nobody works hard, because people do work hard. People are working at jobs and 3 jobs and all that. It's not that. It's like it's the push.
Yeah.
It's the it's the resilience. It's not that you are working, it's the way that you're working, it's the way that you're approaching, it's the not thinking about all the things that won't happen and why it
Yes.
can't happen, because that is something that will pull you back and pull you down. It's that energy. If Michael Phelps was looking to the left and to the right and thinking about all the wrong things, he wouldn't get to that wall before everybody else.
I love that distinction. It's not about working hard, and that's really generous of you to acknowledge that there's tons of people listening to the show who work super hard. But the distinction is that grittiness, that resilience, and you're a
Plow
hundred.
through. It's the plow through, but it's not be annoying, and it's not be the squeaky wheel. It's not badgering. It's finessing it and playing chess and pulling back when it doesn't work and going forward and going to the left and going to the right and like massaging it, figuring out how to get in, whatever that means. And if you know that distance, that other point, but you don't know how to get, like, you see the island, but you don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
But you know that if you got there, that whatever that idea is or that thing is good, then you got to just figure out a way to get there. And
Yes.
you can't,
Yes.
no one's going to tell you how to do it either, because nobody knows. It's your own path, and it's not the same as anyone else's.
Let's talk about that island for a second, because part of the reason I started the show, we've done 600 and something episodes, is to show people the island. Because I think that we reach for the highest branch we can see. And for some people, they're so stuck in limitation. They're so stuck in like, well, my mom was this, and the guy up the street did, he worked in advertising. I guess that's the best I could ever do is work in like that's all that's modeled for them. How did you like start to see how much abundance and how much expansion and how much possibility actually is real and does exist?
Well, I didn't have a mentor. When I say the island, like, I, it's not that far. Meaning, I didn't say I want to be Oprah Winfrey or I want to be a billionaire or, these aren't these like grandiose things that are too far. That's why I said it was like a marathon. It's more the way that like Tom Hanks was on that movie where he was stuck on that island, where he did one thing at a time. He made an ice skate into a dental tool to get his tooth out, and then the next day he did this, and then the next, like, you're sort of building, but you set small goals. So it's chess and checkers. The small goals is the checkers. The chessboard is that like you're kind of fantasizing and dreaming about these things that could be, not obsessing over them, because then you're like, I'm not going to really, be that big dream that seems too big. But they're just like sort of like fantasies that you're kind of making a reality. It's almost like dreamlike. When I was on the Housewives, in my periphery, I just knew I was getting a spinoff. There wasn't a spinoff yet on Bravo.
I love
I
that.
just knew it was happening, and I don't know why, and I just thought it, but it wasn't like a goal. It just was a thing there that you sort of made happen. You kind of secreted it, and it just was like it was there. It's not the pressure of something unrealistic, but doing well and connecting and being good at that and putting my all into it, that was an attainable goal. And then you take on the next thing.
It's so huge what you just said, because 96% of our brain is our subconscious, and all these beliefs people hear all day long, they're not facts, but they replay them. And in your mind, there was like this, I just kind of knew that this was the next thing. And so for people who are going to read this book that's going to come out next, and for people who've been watching you, how do they change that radio station in their mind so they can actually hear something that's true versus the limiting garbage that gets replayed over and over?
Well, there's a lot of noise, and you have to be calm and relax and meditate or do yoga or take a bath or take a walk or rest or whatever that thing is, because you can't the best ideas come between sleep and wake for me, and the best ideas happen when it's like not so crowded in your brain. So you need to allow for that space to happen. But like, I never listened to when I wrote Naturally Thin. I was just a woman who understood what a food noise was and knew that this had to be something plaguing other people, and it wasn't about losing a lot of weight. It was just about this this insane dialogue that people were having. I'm bad, I'm good, I'll be good tomorrow, I need to
Mhm.
be on a diet, I'm fat,
Mhm.
and so I just understood that. And people said you should go be a nutritionist and you should be a this, and I said I don't want to be that. I want to be just a person who wrote this book. And I was met with a lot of resistance because everyone said I had to be 12 pounds in 4 days. It was long before now a yoga meditation world. It was more about like 12 pounds in 4 days and being rigid. But I could see that like that's not the way that people wanted to have a conversation about food and people could get a better relationship with it. But it didn't exist yet. And I was a natural food chef 20 years before it existed as a popular thing. Same thing though was with the podcast. I've never listened to a podcast to this day. I just had this feeling that someone needed to be talking about business in a non-traditional way and just be unafraid, and that a woman needed to have that,
Yep.
my version of that, like Howard Stern, Dave Portnoy, unapologetic perspective, that there just needed to be, there's no woman who
Yep.
wasn't afraid. And so it's just something in your periphery. It's not, you don't even know. And it's not like I'm going to be, because you'll make it your own recipe. You just know that you just sort of feel like you're going in that direction. You're floating in that direction. So you shouldn't be so strict with yourself to know. You just sort of have a general idea of where direction you're going in, and then you can shift. It shouldn't be so stuck and so rigid.
Yeah, well, it's a good segue into the title of this book because you were just talking about like that there wasn't necessarily like you had seen in this food space or in the podcasting space a woman who had the boldness to just tell the truth. And in the title of the book you say business is personal, the truth about what it takes to be successful while staying true to yourself. And one of the biggest things that comes up for this audience is wanting to be liked, is I would start a business, I would start a podcast, but what if it's not good enough, or what will they say about me? And as a person who's been in the public eye for such a long time, how have you been able to sort of disconnect from what other people think so that you can stay true to yourself?
Um, it's so liberating. It's the To stay true to yourself is just so freeing because you just always know exactly what to do. And
Right.
by
Yeah,
the
that's
way,
true.
it has its drawbacks. Yesterday, I was doing an interview like this for much longer. I think it was with CNN, and I had a really bad, wretched morning right up to the minute. I was going to be late, and it was a bad morning.
Ugh,
Hit sideways, and I was not myself, and I was off, and I was trying, and I was a little contentious. I was just a little just uptight. I just wasn't myself. My publicist noticed it. I felt it. I was angry inside. I was hostile. Not like I was like a
yeah.
but I just was a little hostile. And afterwards, I asked Jill for the email of the person to say, sorry, I had a shit morning. And the problem with being authentic is that I'm not like, I didn't like doing a daytime talk show because I can't be cheery every goddamn day. It's not
Yeah, that's true.
realistic. It's not truthful. Ellen DeGeneres has made it look so easy. You think the woman hasn't had a bad day in 10 years, that she every day has to be cheery to everybody? Like, that's hard.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
so it's got its draw. It's liberating because you always are who you are, but it's challenging because you always are who you are. So but you find your niche within that. First of all, not everybody's likable, and not everybody's likable on television and in a podcast. That doesn't mean it's something you decide to do, or a product isn't going to be likable. And also, if you're staying true, like, look, Martha Stewart's not charismatic or funny, but she's always been authentically dry and cold in her
Yeah.
delivery of these recipes. So people came to realize that's just her delivery and that's who she is. So it doesn't mean that it's likable. It just means that it's who she is. So people feel some sort of safety in that. She's not all of a sudden, getting blonde extensions, putting acrylics on and making souffle. So people feel comfort in just like relying on who somebody actually is. That's one thing. And with me, I don't know that everybody thinks I'm lovable. I think maybe some people do. I also think I'm polarizing and people love me and hate me, but they believe me. They think that they do not, no one thinks I'm lying unless they just are just really have something against me and want to come fuck with me. But like, no one would ever say that I was lucky or that I'm lying. Like, those are just not things that are said about me. So I have my thing that I adhere to. That's why I don't mind saying something unpopular on a podcast, because I feel it. I want to say it. And I had to make that choice because I can't do a watered down podcast. I had to do it the way that I had to do it.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think that you are polarizing. That's true. But the people who love you, it's just, they love you. No one's ever like parv. That's like a kosher word, but it's like, no one's neutral about you. It's either they're like obsessed or it's like, oh, she's not my thing. But most of the people I know are really into you because of that refreshing, authentic, like, here I am. And I feel like the women that I talk to every single day have been raised to be pleasers. And they
I have to say something. So yesterday, so this is two things. Yesterday, and there's a guy that I really like that I do business with who's great. And years ago, if he worked on this deal, we agreed that he would get a commission. And he literally doesn't really do anything at all for the deal. And yesterday morning, I said, this is me, instead of going in a circle and telling the other, I said to him, this is me being transparent. You are not doing anything. Like, so if we're doing charity, like for me to pay you, and this is a powerful person. I don't know if I feel comfortable paying you when you're not actually doing something. So let's discuss that. Like, and it was jarring but the one thing I know about that person is, which is something that this person has said to other people about me, she's tough, but she's fair. Like, that person doesn't think I'm going to lie to them about a business deal. Or if I were buying if I'm doing a real estate transaction, they may be like, she's such a bitch, but they will not think I'm not telling the truth. Yeah. And this is going on with these beauty reviews. I'll literally be on TikTok and I'm like, this is not worth $56, but, and just face value, the number one comment is, we don't need an explanation, because they just believe that what I'm telling them is the truth. So for the women listening, if you lay the groundworks and in everything you do, you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and it's not always popular, but they at least know that they can trust what you're saying, there's a tremendous value to that, way more valuable than being liked. I'd much rather be respected or believed than liked.
And by the way, I think this is part of why you have attracted so many people into your world, because I think people look at you and it's not a look at me, it's a come with me. Because if a man were to say anything like you just said, like, I don't like this lipstick, or you're not doing anything, that's just called being direct. Like, if Mark Cuban or Howard Schultz looked at somebody and said that, so what? With you, it's like, oh, Bethenny Frankel, it's like, when I'm so sick of seeing these women, and I'm like, I get you're sweet. I get you can be caring. You're also a boss. Put your freaking crown on, like, stand up. And then what do? You help all these other women come out of the shadows. And that's why I think I said that to you earlier. That's your biggest legacy. And whether you know it or not, you probably do know it. That, I think, is what people really take away from you, is this, like, I'm going to actually have a self. And
but
that's
it's hard as a woman, myself included, to be direct without actually being a bitch. And I don't mean being labeled as a bitch. Like, we just get to that point and we can be emotional. So we'll just I don't think that's a good idea. Like, the pass ag, men do it, but not as much. We have a much, I don't know if I can say cunty, but I'm going to, cuntier way of doing it. And so that's why it becomes bitchy. If I really think about the men, because the men have the confidence to just say it. They haven't, like, gotten emotional about it because they're not worried about saying it and afraid about saying it. So it just comes out in this bitchy way, which I definitely have experience with. So we have to work on our delivery because we have to be confident in what we're saying. Well, and yesterday I wasn't bitchy. I just said, listen, I don't feel comfortable paying you. You're not doing anything. Like, we have to talk. But rather than tell 4 other people, which is what everybody does, and gossip about it, I go directly to the person. It's frightening, but I do it.
I'm very impressed. So as far as this book that's coming out, what is the thing, if you could boil it down, that you want people to walk away with after they read it? Like, what do you want them to start to do or think about differently, etc.?
Well, there's a fearlessness to the stories and the anecdotes in the book. There's the way that I write all my books is prescriptive. And so it's, a person who's a mogul and makes $100 million a year would totally relate to the stories and learn something, because every entrepreneur can learn from another entrepreneur. It happens every day on my podcast. You learn. So, but then a woman who's literally a housewife and wants to do something, rise in a career, get a job, make a change, can also, it's not dumbed up or down. It's just straight up, and it's relatable to a mogul or a mom, and that's true. It's just the way that I write. I'm not like fluffy, and I don't get wax poetic. I just sort of, I'm like,
Right.
this is what it is and this is what it's not, and these are rules, like, and so they're just rules that people carry around as a toolkit. And then I'll just tell a story that happened to me about the fearlessness of 5 minutes before going on HSN with swimwear when it sucked, having the courage to say, I'm not doing this, and giving all the reasons why, because you're
Ay,
adhering to
my
your brand.
stomach.
And I have a partner, and it's going to cost me a lawsuit and $50,000 minimum. But I'm not selling to these people who believe me, because later when I want to sell them that lip gloss is shitty, they're not going to believe me
For you.
if I lied when I send them those shitty bathing suits. So
Right.
you have to stick to the program at all times, and it's not always easy. So there are so many stories in there about things that went down that, same concept, HSN wanting the name to be Skinny Girl, and me saying, we are now going to cross the line because this is now bathing suits. So salad dressings is lower in calorie. And I recently, more because everybody's wants to cancel everybody, I'm getting more flack because of lower calorie. But for food, I have zero problem. I think it's an amazing name. When we got into jeans, it's a reach. And now it breaks if we go into swim. So I had to have the unpopular discussion about wanting it to be Bethenny. It's a woman, it's elegant. They're coming out now and they're unbelievable. So I'm so happy for that whole story to have a full circle. But, and then also just facing the music, facing that it's a decade later than when I named Skinny Girl, which was just one product, and having to discuss that and be honest about your choices and decisions. So the book is about the navigation, and it's basically like, you could tell somebody, you could work out one interesting riddle or game, but learn skills to work out another riddle or game. It doesn't mean you don't have a swimwear line, you don't have a brand called Skinny Girl, but you have another problem that this is going to remind you about, or something's going to come up, and then you're going to say, wow, Bethany used that tool. Or when Bethany says, don't connect the dots, why am I telling this person everything? I'll tell them what they need to know and nothing more, because connecting the dots is the most popular thing to do and the worst thing to do in business ever, and in personal too. I literally don't want to tell someone what I ate for lunch.
Well, we're gonna wrap up in a couple minutes. I want to ask you though, because I hear it all the time and it just drives me crazy. This I don't know what it is. It's a phenomenon. It's called imposter syndrome. And every second, women are telling me why, like, they have this idea for a book or they have this idea for something for Etsy or whatever it is, but it's not really good enough. It's not. And so they just sit on it and sit on it and sit on it. What do you say to somebody who's in that place for too long?
But that's being constipated. Like, that's just being stuck. And you need to make the mistakes when the stakes are lower. Later on, there are going to be, now I can't make the same mistakes I could make years ago. But I made so many mistakes, and it's case law that I now refer to, which is exactly what business is personal is. It's case law for people to say, oh my God, thank God, she's telling us that, because then I won't make that same mistake. I mean, that's what the book is effectively about. But imposter, like, I've met a lot of business people. Most people aren't that smart. Most people aren't, going to go as far as you are. So I wouldn't really worry about it. If you really know that you are a badass that is willing to work so hard and go all the way, most people aren't really willing to do that. It was extremely unpopular when it's extremely unpopular now that Jeffrey Katzenberg then said, if you don't come in on Saturday, don't bother coming in on Sunday. I think that was a delightful, beautiful thing to say, because that's an entrepreneur, and everybody's a pussy who acts like everything's about work-life balance now. No mogul who's come on my podcast has said they're worried about their work-life balance. We get it. We try to get it. Try to give it to everybody ad nauseum, because we're in a different time. But for me, the main entrepreneur, me having a really, work-life balance, like the zone diet proportions of work, is bullshit. And it's just not the way to be very successful, because business is personal. You love it. You're passionate about it. You're thinking about it. You can't help it. It's an idea. You're an idea hamster. You're executing. That's an entrepreneur. So that's like what it is.
100%. And we had this guy, Dan Buettner here, who's found these blue zones where people live into their hundreds and they don't retire. That's why they live a long time. Because when we're working, we're in service, we're in purpose, we're in desire. When you sit around and just drink a Mai Tai, you're bored, right? Your whole
Yeah.
life force shuts down. So I don't even know where people came up with that. It has to be balanced here, there. Yeah. So it is amazing how much you have spinning, how much you have going. When you do enjoy yourself, what is your favorite thing to do?
Um, well, I mean, my daughter is my life. I mean, I enjoy just watching movies with her and doing activities with her, just going for whatever holidays coming up. It could be Groundhog's Day. Just it's always like the Gingerbread University in the Hamptons and Rockefeller Center every single year. And
Aw.
the bucket list in the summer. We make a bucket list, and we every summer we go wakeboarding, and multiple times we go surfing, and we paddleboard. And by the end of the summer, we want to check all the boxes. And did we do this? We just make everything into everything. So with my daughter, it just gives me this amazing purpose, socially, just food wise, experientially, just that's just a great outlet. And then I I have an obsession with organizing things, with fiddling with things, with fixing things, with improving spaces, with you know solutions in spaces and organization. It's great. Like Marie Kondo is not as organized as I am.
Well, it's funny because I was in Greenwich, Connecticut like a year and a half ago, and I looked at this house that I almost bought, and I was like, this house is amazing. And we have three daughters. So it was a little small, but the broker was adorable. And I'm walking through, and I'm like, who designed this house? And you had designed this house.
Oh, the one in La France.
It was absolutely stunning. And I
And
almost bought it,
that's so funny.
but it was a
Famous
little too
dentist
small.
bought it.
Yeah, it was just a little too small because we have three kids, but
Yeah.
you are so talented.
Thank
I
you.
was like, oh, the vibe for days. All right. So tell us, because I want to let you go. You're a delight. Thank you for being so generous with your time. Where can they get the book, and where can they follow you, and where can they just absorb all of your beauty?
Okay. Well, Business is Personal is the book. So everywhere books are sold. So buy the book, you'll love it. And it'll be a Bible and a handbook and a toolkit, and you will be obsessed with it because business is personal. And whoever said anything otherwise is incorrect. And that's fake news. I am on Instagram at Bethenny Frankel. I am the Justin Bieber of the beauty space on TikTok at this time. And that's it. And I'm doing an event in New York with Katie Couric to launch the book. So I'm very grateful for that because she also has an amazing book and is an amazing writer. So yippee.
Bethenny Frankel. I mean, you're just so cool. I'm so
Thank
glad that
you.
I got to hang with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. This was fun. This was great. I wouldn't have been bitchy with you yesterday. I don't think this was too easy to be in a good mood.
Oh, I'm just a Jewish girl from Long Island. So
Awesome. What part?
I was born in Syosset, and then
Okay.
we moved to Boca when I was a little girl, and then I've been in LA for a long time.
Got it. Okay. Well, awesome. This was great.
You're great. You're so
you.
great. And just keep doing all the things, and you should just live and be well. You're a rock star.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Awesome.
Sei gesund. Okay. Bye.